April 18, 1945. Philippine Sea, about 240 miles east of Okinawa. The sun is still low. The air at altitude is thin and cold. Clouds hang in loose layers, drifting over the endless expanse of dark water. A Mitsubishi A6M Zero cuts through that cold air, sleek, pale gray-green, long, slender wings, a single engine pulling it forward with a raw metallic growl. Inside the cramped cockpit, Ensign Tadayoshi Koga, 20 years old, grips the controls with gloved hands. The leather of his flight gloves is worn at the fingertips. Sweat gathers at the back of his neck under his helmet. He tastes metal and nerves on his tongue. Today's mission was supposed to be simple. A dawn patrol, launched from an airfield on Formosa, modern-day Taiwan. His flight took off 3 hours earlier, climbing through the dim light into the gray band of sky that separates night from day. The objective is routine on paper. Patrol the approaches toward Okinawa, where the American fleet tightens around one of Japan's last defensive strongholds. Search for enemy ships, enemy aircraft, any sign of the relentless advance. Nothing about these patrols feels routine anymore. Fuel is scarce, spare parts are scarce, experienced pilots are scarce. Every sortie feels like a gamble in a card game where the house keeps winning. For Koga, each mission is a coin toss. One side says, you return. The other side says, you vanish. This morning, the coin has already left his hand. It spins unseen in the air. Koga does not know how it will land. The cockpit around him is cramped and functional. Dials tremble faintly on the instrument panel. The smell of fuel and engine oil has seeped into everything: his clothes, his hair, his skin. The engine's vibration buzzes gently through the seat, a constant reminder that there is only one machine between him and the vast, hungry ocean below. He glances out at his wingman flying off his right side. Another Zero. Another young man in another small cockpit. They shared rice last night. They joked about what they would do when the war ended, half believing it might never end at all. The sky seems peaceful. For a brief moment, the illusion of war feels oddly far away. That illusion lasts about 3 seconds. It begins with a flicker, a flash of reflected sunlight from above, a shape, a shadow. Then the sky tears open. American F-6F Hellcats drop out of the sun like predators, heavy and powerful, diving fast with gravity on their side. Their engines roar, a deeper, throatier sound than the Zero's light, high-pitched whine. Tracer fire pours downward in thin red lines. The air around Koga fills with the snapping, tearing sound of bullets ripping through sky and metal. He hears the impact before he fully understands what is happening. A sudden shudder, like someone has grabbed the fuselage and shaken it. He glances right. It is already too late for his wingman. For a heartbeat, the other Zero is perfectly framed in Koga's canopy. Then a burst of machine gun fire rakes through it. The plane erupts in a burst of flame and smoke. The nose dips. The aircraft rolls onto its back and begins a slow, spiraling fall toward the sea, leaving a trail of black behind it like a final signature drawn across the sky. No parachute deploys, no flare, no signal. 1 second, there is a friend. The next second, there is wreckage and fire and gravity. Koga's chest tightens. He yanks the control stick, throwing his Zero into a hard brake. The fragile airframe shudders. Machine gun rounds tear holes in the thin aluminum skin. He hears them punching through the wings, the fuselage, the tail. The engine screams in protest as he dives, trying to get out from under the attackers. The Zero was built for these moments, built to turn fast, to climb, to dodge. Japanese engineers stripped away armor, heavy supports, and protective systems to make it light and agile. No self-sealing fuel tanks, no heavy plating, just speed and maneuverability. That trade-off made the Zero king of the sky early in the war. It could outturn almost anything, but by 1945, the same design had become a curse. A few bursts from the Hellcats can turn a Zero into a torch. Koga knows this. He dives toward a scattered line of low clouds, pushing his aircraft as hard as he dares. The airflow screams along the wings. His stomach lurches as the horizon tilts. He plunges into the cloud bank. The world turns white. The vicious chatter of gunfire fades. The light smears. For a few seconds, sound collapses to just the engine and the wind. He flies blind, holding his breath without meaning to. Then, he bursts through the far side. The Hellcats are gone. The immediate danger has passed. The illusion of safety lasts only a moment. He scans the sky. No wingman, no friendly aircraft, no landmarks, no coastline, no island silhouette in the distance. Nothing but empty horizon in every direction. He looks down. The surface of the Philippine Sea stretches out below like a single piece of dark glass, rippled and shining. It looks peaceful from up here. He knows it is not. If he ends up in that water, it will kill him just as surely as a bullet. He checks his compass. Something feels off. The heading does not match the last bearing he remembers. The dogfight, the dive, the desperate turn through the clouds have ripped him off course. He frowns, fidgeting with the controls, checking again. His radio is dead. No static, no crackle, no voice from the base. Maybe a bullet clipped the wiring, maybe a fuse blew. Either way, no help is coming from the other end. He glances at the fuel gauge. The needle is sliding down. He looks at the oil pressure. The needle is not just falling. It is dropping hard, sinking toward the red. The engine coughs again. A harsh, ragged sound. He feels the plane shudder every time the cylinders misfire. The Zero is still airworthy for now. It flies. It climbs a little. It turns when he tells it to. Yet all the small signs are there. This aircraft is dying. The A6M Zero is a marvel on paper. It has incredible range compared to many Allied fighters. It can fly long distances over open ocean. It can dance in dogfights with tight turns and quick responses. All of that performance was bought by stripping away protection. There is no bulletproof glass in front of the pilot. There is no heavy armor behind his back. The fuel tanks are not sealed to prevent fires. The structure is as light as engineers dared to make it. Early in the war, these choices paid off. Zeros shredded slower, heavier American and British aircraft. Pilots told stories of dogfights where the Japanese fighters seemed to turn on a dime. Over time, American engineers and pilots learned. They studied wreckage. They tested captured aircraft when they could. They developed new tactics. Dive from above. Hit hard in one pass. Never try to match a Zero in a turning dogfight. Use speed and altitude instead of tight maneuvers. Koga Zero is still dangerous in the hands of a skilled pilot. However, it is no longer the invincible monster it once appeared to be. Right now, none of that matters to him. Right now, he is alone, lost, low on fuel, flying a damaged machine over a vast ocean. The war has zoomed in from strategy and tactics and grand campaigns to a single, desperate equation. How does one man in one failing machine survive the next hour? Koga squints into the distance, searching for land. His eyes burn from strain and smoke. Sweat stings the small cut above his eyebrow, trickling down into his lashes.
He wipes it away with the back of his glove. He turns slightly, hoping to spot Formosa, or a smaller island, or even a Japanese ship. He sees nothing. He swallows. His throat feels dry. There's an old training phrase drilled into pilot school. Trust your instruments. In clean combat, in clear weather, that is wise. In chaos, with damage, with the memory of bullets still rattling in his bones, doubt creeps in. He looks at the fuel gauge again. The needle is edging closer to empty. The engine coughs again, a harsh, ragged sound. He feels the plane shudder every time the cylinders misfire. His options, already limited, shrink even further. Then he sees it. At first it is just
a U.S. Navy escort carrier and its accompanying ships. Koga's brief flare of hope collapses inward. He is low on fuel. He is bleeding oil. His radio is silent. Now, directly beneath his flight path, sits a floating city full of enemy guns. If he turns away, his Zero will run out of fuel and drop into the sea within minutes. The ocean will drag him under long before anyone can reach him. If he continues straight, every anti-aircraft gun on that carrier and its escorts will open fire. To them, he is a symbol of danger, of kamikaze terror, of sudden fire and death. He takes a breath and lets it out slowly. He has been trained his entire adult life for aerial combat. He has been taught that dying in battle is honorable and being captured is unthinkable. That training does not offer guidance for this situation. Two options sit in front of him. Both end in death, unless he tries something that no manual ever suggested. The deck is growing larger by the second. He can see the white lines painted along its length. He can see the landing area. He can see figures pointing up at him. He looks at the fuel gauge one more time. The needle is almost touching empty. The engine coughs again, followed by a deeper, uglier sound. He grips the control stick tighter. Then he lowers his landing gear. The indicator lights flicker faintly, then glow. The gear legs lock down with dull clicks he can barely feel through the vibration. He lines up with the carrier's deck, adjusting his angle by instinct and experience. The approach is unsteady. The air coming off the bow disturbs the flow around his wings. The Zero wobbles. He corrects gently, teeth gritted. He knows the odds. If they shoot, he dies. If the ship veers, he dies. If the engine fails too soon, he dies. Still, he holds course. He is no longer attacking. He is asking for a miracle. On the USS Bogue, the mood has shifted from calm routine to crisis. The morning had begun like hundreds of other days. Crewmen rolled fuel hoses across the deck. Yellow-shirted directors signaled aircraft into position. Mechanics checked bolts and control surfaces. The ocean wind blew over the deck, snapping flags and biting exposed skin. Then, the lookout's shout shattered it. Incoming aircraft, Zero type, bearing low, closing fast. Every man on that deck understands what that means. In early 1945, Japanese pilots have increasingly been ordered to carry out kamikaze missions, suicide attacks, in which the pilot crashes his aircraft into enemy ships. These attacks have already sunk or damaged multiple vessels. Many carriers have scars on their decks from past impacts. One Japanese fighter can cause enormous damage if it strikes the right spot. Orders ring out. Battle stations, man the guns, ready the anti-aircraft batteries. Gunners swing their weapons toward the tiny dot on the horizon. Spotters track it through binoculars. Officers shout bearings and distance. A familiar tension settles over the ship, the tight-coiled energy that comes before contact. The Zero grows larger in the lenses. Smoke trails from its engine. The wings tremble. It does not look like a fresh, deadly attacker. It looks hurt. Still, a wounded kamikaze can kill just as effectively as a pristine one. Someone calls out over the roar of the wind. Range is decreasing. Bearing steady. Fingers hover near triggers. Men brace themselves, imagining what a Zero impact could do. Then, another observer shouts, voice cracking slightly with disbelief.
The gear! Look at the gear! The landing gear is down. Confusion ripples across the ship. Why would a kamikaze pilot lower his landing gear? Why would he approach this slow, this controlled, this vulnerable? Commander Harold Dixon lifts his binoculars. The Air Operations Chief is a man who has spent a lifetime around aircraft. He knows the language of approach patterns, the subtle cues in a plane's behavior. He studies the incoming Zero, the smoke, the wobble, the precise adjustments, the way the nose rises and falls. Every instinct grown from months of fighting says this is the enemy, a threat. Every bit of pilot experience built over years whispers something different. This pilot is not diving to kill. This pilot is fighting to stay airborne. He lowers his binoculars. There is no time for a meeting, no time for a debate. Dozens of lives and a priceless opportunity hang in the balance. Dixon makes his choice. He bellows across the deck and through the ship's communication lines. "Hold fire! Hold fire! Do not shoot that aircraft!" Gunners hesitate. Some stare at their officers in disbelief. The order repeats. Slowly, tensely, fingers ease away from triggers. Guns remain trained on the Zero, but no shots are fired. Above, only one man knows nothing about that order. Koga. From the cockpit, the carrier deck fills more and more of his vision. He can see the small details now. Painted lines, safety nets, men crouched behind barriers. His hands ache from gripping the stick. His jaw is clenched so tight it hurts. Turbulent air rolling off the bow strikes the Zero's wings. The lightweight frame bounces. The nose dips, then rises. He adjusts carefully, staying on line. 50 feet. The engine coughs again. Smoke bursts from the cowling. 30 feet. He eases the throttle, coaxing every last heartbeat out of the engine. 20 feet. The engine dies. Not a sputter, not a partial failure, a complete stop. The propeller slows. The vibration fades. The cockpit fills with a sudden dead silence that is more terrifying than any battle noise. The nose tilts downward. He has no power, only momentum and gravity. The landing signal officer on the deck sees the sudden drop. He throws himself aside, paddles flying from his hands. A voice on the deck screams one word that needs no translation. "Brace!" The Zero hits the deck hard. The impact slams through the landing gear, into the fuselage, through the seat, up Koga's spine. A metallic crack echoes across the flight deck. The light aircraft bounces, nose pitching up, then crashes down again. The wheels screech as rubber bites into the wooden planks. The plane skids, smoke blowing past the canopy. The tail hook scrapes along the deck, reaching for the arresting wires. First cable, miss. Second cable, miss. Third cable, brief contact, then the hook slips free. Fourth cable. The hook catches. The cable jerks taut, dragging the Zero to a violent stop. Koga's harness snaps tight across his chest. His helmet taps the canopy frame. Loose items in the cockpit jump. Then everything stills. The plane is stopped. The engine is dead. The landing is over. Koga blinks, breathing fast. He is alive. Somehow, against all logic and training and expectation, he has landed a Japanese Zero on an American aircraft carrier. The flight deck has gone silent. No one is moving. The ordinary thunder of carrier life has frozen. Men stare from behind whatever cover they grabbed a moment earlier. The Zero sits at an angle, landing gear splayed slightly, smoke trailing from its nose. The canopy is intact. So is the pilot inside. Guns remain trained on the aircraft. No trigger has been pulled. The sailors closest to the Zero look both stunned and wary. They have all seen death. Many have watched comrades pulled from burning wreckage or not pulled out at all. They have watched enemy planes dive and crash and explode. They have felt the concussion of bombs and the slam of artillery. They have never seen an enemy fighter land and sit there like it belongs. Koga slowly raises his hands where they can see them. The gesture is universal. I am not attacking, I surrender. The nearest sailors tighten their grips on their rifles. Some glance at their officers for direction. Commander Dixon steps forward. His boots thump against the deck. He keeps his eyes on the cockpit. From this close, he can see the pilot clearly now. The face is young, pale, streaked with oil and sweat. A small band of dried blood marks a cut on his forehead. This is not a faceless threat from a training poster, not a caricature on a propaganda leaflet, not a distant speck in a gun sight. This is a young man. He feels the weight of the moment. It is one thing to fight an enemy in the abstract. It is another to stand a few yards away from him. He turns to his men and speaks calmly. "Secure the pilot. He's ours." Sailors move in, rifles raised but held just below the shoulder. They approach carefully, wary of tricks, willing to shoot if they must. Koga hesitates, then reaches up and unlatches the canopy. The lock clicks. He pushes it open. The hinges groan softly. Cool, salty air rushes into the cockpit, washing over his face. The smells change. Less engine fumes, more salt, more ocean, more human breath, more oil and sweat from the deck crew.
A young American sailor, not much older than Koga, stares up at him with wide eyes. In a low, stunned voice, he mutters to the man next to him, "Jesus, he's just a kid." Koga understands the word kid. His English is limited, but certain words stick. He keeps his gaze straight ahead. His hands remain raised. He does not reach for any hidden weapon. He does not resist. Back in Japan, instructors drilled into every pilot that capture is shameful. Better to crash into the sea, better to die in a fiery wreck than to fall into enemy hands. Surrender is dishonor. Survival at any cost is selfish. None of those lessons are helpful right now. He knows that if he tries to fight, to run, to jump, he will die before he takes 2 steps. He knows that if he remains still, if he cooperates, he might live. 2 sailors reach up and offer their hands. He accepts. The moment his feet leave the cockpit floor and hit the deck, his legs buckle. The exhaust of adrenaline, the lack of food, the long flight, the crash landing, all of it hits him at once. Strength drains out of him like water. He tilts sideways. The sailors catch him without thinking. Their reflex is not to let him smash into the deck. It is to hold him upright. For a brief second, a Japanese pilot and 2 American sailors are just 3 exhausted young men trying not to fall. That tiny, instinctive gesture, a simple decision to catch instead of drop, cuts through months of propaganda louder than any speech ever could. Koga straightens slowly with their help. They guide him away from the aircraft. Rifles stay close, but do not strike. He is now a prisoner of war. He is also very much alive. As Koga is led below decks, the captured Zero becomes the center of attention. Crewmen gather around, peering at it with a mix of curiosity, awe, and disbelief. This is the aircraft many of them have feared and fought, the one that has haunted stories since Pearl Harbor, the nimble, deadly fighter that danced around early Allied planes. Up close, it looks almost fragile. One mechanic, given permission to step forward, reaches out and pats the wing. He expects something solid, something thick and heavy. His hand meets thin metal, almost delicate. Feels like tin, soda can metal. No wonder they turn so well. There's nothing to this thing. Another sailor leans over the cockpit rim and looks inside. No armor behind the seat. No thick steel plate under the pilot. Fuel lines and control cables run where they can be easily hit. This thing's fast, but man, it's a death trap. To the U.S. Navy and its intelligence officers, the Zero is not a death trap.
It is a prize. A fully intact, combat-tested A6M Zero has landed on their deck without a single bullet fired to bring it down. Engineers and intelligence personnel move in quickly. Photographs are taken. Measurements begin. Every panel, every rivet, every component becomes a piece in a puzzle they have been trying to solve for years. Chief Engineer Addison practically crawls under the fuselage. "Look at this!" he calls to Commander Dixon. "Everything is stripped down. Bare minimum material. Every pound shaved off. They gave up protection everywhere to gain maneuverability and range." Dixon studies the aircraft, seeing not just metal, but future tactics. "If we can get it flying again, we can find out exactly where it breaks, exactly how it stalls, exactly what it cannot do." Addison grins. "We are absolutely going to try." Down below, Koga sits in a small compartment, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. The walls are metal, painted a dull gray. The bench he sits on is bolted to the floor. The air smells faintly of oil and paint and the sea. Two Marines stand outside the door. Their presence is silent, but unmistakable. Koga's heart thumps in his chest. His mind runs through all the stories he has heard. He was told that Americans are barbarians. He was told that they torture prisoners. He was told they kill for sport, that they hate Japanese people on a level beyond reason. He expects the door to crash open. He expects blows, shouts, maybe worse. Instead, the door opens with an ordinary metallic click. A medic steps inside, carrying a small canvas bag. No one else. The medic sets the bag down and speaks in slow, plain English. "Hold still," he says, gesturing toward the cut on Koga's forehead. Koga stiffens. He doesn't understand every word, but he knows the tone. He holds himself still. The medic cleans the wound with antiseptic. It stings sharply. Koga flinches. The medic does not strike him or shout. He simply continues, focused and calm. When the cut is clean, the medic tapes a fresh bandage over it. Then he pulls out a metal cup, fills it from a canteen, and offers it. "Drink," he says. Koga hesitates. His mind races. Poison? Some kind of trick? The medic gives a slight, encouraging nod. Koga lifts the cup. The water is cold, clear, pure. It runs across his tongue and down his throat, washing away the dryness and the taste of smoke. He drinks more, then more. The medic waits until he finishes, then gives him a small, tired smile. "You'll be all right," he says gently. Koga doesn't understand the exact phrasing, but he understands the kindness. The medic gathers his things and leaves. The door closes again. Koga is alone. The war has taught him many lessons. None of them prepared him for this. The first American he has ever met has not hurt him. The first American he has ever met has healed him. Time passes. The ship vibrates beneath his feet as it cuts through the water. He feels the faint thuds of aircraft landing and taking off somewhere above him. The humming of engines and machinery runs through the walls. Eventually, the door opens again. Two Marines arrive. "Come," one says, gesturing. Koga stands. They lead him through narrow corridors lit by overhead lamps. Sailors walk past, some glancing curiously at him, others ignoring him as they focus on tasks. The air smells of metal, sweat, food, oil.
The vessel feels alive in a way no land base could ever. They bring him into a small briefing room. Inside, 3 men are waiting. Captain Giles, the commanding officer of the Bogue, Commander Dixon, and a Japanese-speaking officer who will act as a translator. Koga is guided to a chair. He sits. His posture is stiff. His hands rest in his lap. The translator speaks first, in his own language. Ensign Tadayoshi Koga, we wish to ask you some questions. For now, not about codes or secrets. We wish to understand what happened this morning and your condition. Koga keeps his eyes down. His voice, when he speaks, is steady, but carries a tremor underneath it. I have failed. Capture brings shame. I should have died. The translator relays the words. Dixon exhales quietly. There is no mockery in his eyes, just the recognition of another pilot who has flown too many dangerous missions. Tell him, Dixon says, that choosing to live is not failure. He survived. That takes courage too. The translator repeats this to Koga in Japanese. Koga looks up startled. Survival honored instead of condemned. The idea runs against everything his instructors drilled into him. It sounds almost dangerous. Captain Giles leans forward slightly, resting his forearms on the table. He tells him, you will be treated fairly. You will be fed. You will be protected while you are aboard this ship. And when the war ends, he pauses, you will go home. The word hits Koga like a physical blow. Home. He thinks of his family, his parents, younger siblings.
His war in the air is over. His mission is finished. His aircraft is gone. Yet his heart still beats against his ribs. His lungs still draw breath. His legs still carry him across the small room. Whatever anyone says back home, whatever the official record eventually writes, he has done something few pilots on either side of the war ever manage. He has survived a day that should have killed him in a dozen different ways. That night, the carrier hums softly as it cuts through the dark sea. The sky above is clear, scattered with stars. The flight deck is dim, lit by red safety lights and the occasional flash from distant activity. Below, in his bunk, Koga lies awake. He listens to the sounds of the ship, the low thrum of engines, the faint creak of the hull as it rides the swell, footsteps overhead, muffled voices in passing, the steady rhythm of life aboard a large warship. His blanket smells faintly of detergent and ship air. Not home, but not unpleasant. His thoughts slip back to his family. His mother's gentle voice, his father's stern pride, the streets where he ran as a child, the school where he first learned about aircraft and dreamed of flying. He imagines what they will be told. In wartime, information is rarely honest or complete. Perhaps they will hear that he died bravely in combat. Perhaps they will never receive details at all. Perhaps they will be handed a simple official notice and nothing more. His eyes burn. He wipes them frustrated with himself, though no one is there to see. Across the ship, American sailors sleep too. Many of them think of their own homes, some of the battles behind them, some of the fighting yet to come. They are all caught inside the same vast, grinding machine of war, labeled enemy by people far away. Yet here, in this moment, one of those enemies lies in a bunk on the same ship, breathing the same air, hearing the same engines. The war, so vast and abstract on maps, has shrunk down to one shared steel hull and countless individual hearts beating in the dark. The next morning, the ship wakes again to the familiar pattern of routines. Planes are moved, deck crews work, officers review reports. On the hangar deck, the Zero is secured for eventual transport. It has been photographed, measured, cataloged. Every panel removed will help someone, somewhere, draft a report. That report will help someone else brief pilots. Those pilots will carry that knowledge into future battles. The lessons learned from this one aircraft will ripple outward through training programs and combat engagements. Pilots will learn not to fear the Zero blindly, but to respect it and understand it. They will know when to engage and when to disengage. They will know what maneuvers favor their own machines. As a result, some will return home who might otherwise have been shot down. Those surviving pilots will see their families again. They will raise children. They will grow old. Most of them will never know that part of the reason they lived traced back to one morning, one damaged Zero, and one young Japanese pilot who refused to let his life end in cold seawater. Later that day, the Japanese-speaking officer visits Koga again. He steps into the compartment and asks, politely, "Ensign Koga, may I sit?" Koga nods. They sit side by side on the bunk. The ship hums around them. "I know this must feel confusing," the officer says. "You were taught that Americans are cruel, that surrender is worse than death, that honor means never being captured." Koga stares down at his hands. "These beliefs are easier to hold when the enemy is just a word on a page, when you have never seen their faces, when you have never been inside their ship." Koga's mouth feels dry. "I do not understand your treatment," he admits. "You give me food, you give me water, you treat my wounds, you speak to me with respect. I am your enemy." "You are a pilot," the officer replies, "a man, a soldier who followed orders and tried to survive. We are at war, yes, but war does not erase humanity." Koga swallows. "I have brought shame to my family," he says. "My country says capture is dishonor. I should have crashed. I should have died." The officer studies him for a long moment. "Or," he says quietly, "you have given your family someone who is still alive, a son who may see them again, a future that still exists." The words feel like a hand reaching through the fog inside Koga's mind. The clash between duty and survival does not vanish. It remains heavy, tangled, unresolved. Yet, for the first time, he allows himself to imagine a possibility that does not end in fire or water. He allows himself to imagine a future.
Officers review reports. On the hangar deck, the Zero is secured for eventual transport. It has been photographed, measured, cataloged. Every panel removed will help someone, somewhere, draft a report. That report will help someone else brief pilots. Those pilots will carry that knowledge into future battles. The lessons learned from this one aircraft will ripple outward through training programs and combat engagements. Pilots will learn not to fear the Zero blindly, but to respect and understand it. They will know when to engage and when to disengage. They will know what maneuvers favor their own machines. As a result, some will return home, who might otherwise have been shot down. Those surviving pilots will see their families again. They will raise children. They will grow old. Most of them will never know that part of the reason they lived traced back to one morning, one damaged Zero, and one young Japanese pilot who refused to let his life end in cold seawater. Later that day, the Japanese-speaking officer visits Koga again. He steps into the compartment and asks, politely, "Ensign Koga, may I sit?" Koga nods. They sit side by side on the bunk. The ship hums around them. "I know this must feel confusing," the officer says. "You were taught that Americans are cruel, that surrender is worse than death, that honor means never being captured." Koga stares down at his hands. "These beliefs are easier to hold when the enemy is just a word on a page," the officer continues. "When you have never seen their faces, when you have never been inside their ship." Koga's mouth feels dry. "I do not understand your treatment," he admits. "You give me food. You give me water. You treat my wounds. You speak to me with respect. I am your enemy. You are a pilot, a man, a soldier who followed orders and tried to survive. We are at war, yes, but war does not erase humanity." Koga swallows. "I have brought shame to my family. My country says capture is dishonor. I should have crashed. I should have died." The officer studies him for a long moment. "Or," he says quietly, "you have given your family someone who is still alive, a son who may see them again, a future that still exists." The words feel like a hand reaching through the fog inside Koga's mind. The clash between duty and survival does not vanish. It remains heavy, tangled, unresolved. Yet, for the first time, he allows himself to imagine a possibility that does not end in fire or water. He allows himself to imagine a future. War likes big numbers. Tonnage sunk, sorties flown, casualties listed in columns. History often focuses on major battles: Midway, Leyte Gulf, Okinawa, names written in bold letters on timelines. Behind those headlines, there are countless smaller stories, conversations in quiet rooms, choices made in a moment, hands extended instead of fists clenched. On that day in April 1945, a single damaged Zero approached an American carrier and did something no training manual predicted. Its lighting gear was lowered. The gunners did not fire. A medic offered water to a frightened enemy instead of pain. A commander chose restraint instead of instinctive aggression. These acts did not end the war. They did not bring peace. They did not erase the suffering elsewhere. They did something else. They reminded everyone who heard the story that even in the worst moments, human beings remain human. The captured Zero would eventually make its way into the machinery of Allied intelligence and engineering. Test pilots would fly similar aircraft, pushing them to their limits, finding their weaknesses. Instructors would write textbooks and training pamphlets. Diagrams and charts would show exactly how to fight and defeat the once feared fighter. New tactics would spread. The myth of the invincible Zero would fade, replaced by a more accurate picture: a highly capable aircraft with serious vulnerabilities. Air battles would still be brutal and deadly, but fear would be replaced by understanding. Understanding, in turn, would save lives. Most people would remember only the technical side of the story: the captured plane, the test flights, the updated tactics. The human side, the quiet moments on the bogue, might fade. A young pilot trembling in a foreign corridor. Two sailors catching him when his legs give out. A medic offering water. A commander saying, "You chose to live. That is not shame." Yet these are the pieces that give the story its soul. When the war finally ends, many years later, ships like the Bogue will be scrapped. Aircraft like the Zero will be retired. The men who served will age. Some will talk freely about what they saw. Others will remain silent. Somewhere in that fading constellation of memory and experience, this story will survive. A morning over the Philippine Sea, a damaged aircraft, a decision to lower the landing gear instead of diving, an order to hold fire instead of shoot. The details may blur. The exact date, the exact distances, the exact words may shift. The core remains. An enemy pilot chose life. An enemy crew saw a man, not just a target. For a few minutes, on a ship built for war, the logic of killing stepped aside, and something older and deeper took its place. You can view this story as military history, as a strange tactical incident in a vast conflict. You can see it as a fascinating case of intelligence gathering and engineering analysis. You can also see it as a question.
What would you have done on that flight deck with alarms blaring and a Zero approaching? What would you have done in that cockpit, with fuel running out, engine failing, enemy ships below, and a sea waiting to swallow you? These are not easy questions. They are not theoretical when you are the one holding the stick or the one with your finger on the trigger. The story of Ensign Tadayoshi Koga does not hand out simple moral lessons. It does not pretend that war can be clean or simple. It does something more valuable. It reminds us that even in the middle of horror and chaos, individuals still choose. Some choose to kill when they don't have to. Some choose to spare when they don't expect to. Some choose to die for ideas they barely understand. Some choose stubbornly to live. In a war built on destroying lives, one of the most powerful things anyone can do is choose not to give theirs up so easily. And that choice, made in a failing Zero over the Philippine Sea, continues to echo long after the engines went silent and the guns fell quiet.